where the truth is.
Give government propaganda and the media spin doctors the flick. And check out Doin' Time for news, views and tunes on prison issues from Guantanamo Bay to Christmas Island to prisons and detention centres everywhere. Every Monday at 4 p.m. on your community radio 3CR.
We are still fired up and we're still talking about revolution.
Hello and welcome to the Doin' Time show. This is 3CR Community Radio, 855 AM on the dial, streaming live on www.3cr.org.au. This is Marissa and I'll be taking you through until 5 o'clock this evening. And first up on the show, we're going to be speaking with Lydia Thorpe. She's an Indigenous woman and also has done some work in regards to looking at whether or not Aboriginal people need to be included in the Constitution. Of course, they do need to be included, but we also need to have a look at this topic very thoroughly and revisit again, given that there are some urgent issues in regards to treaty and in regards to unfinished business and lack of consultation. And it seems to me that we need to have a look at some of that and look at some of the issues that have been undermined in the mainstream media. Then after that, so yeah, we're going to look at the Gamma Festival anyway and look at that. And then after that, we'll be speaking with Ian from the Refugee Solidarity Network, and he'll be speaking about the US deal regarding asylum seekers and refugees. There was a snap action on Friday, organised by the Refugee Action Collective, as protest grows on Manus and Nauru. And the Refugee Action Collective called that snap solidarity protest to demand the Turnbull government bring the refugees here. So without any further ado, we're now going to be crossing over to Lydia now. And we'll be speaking with her right now, I hope. Hello, Lydia. Welcome to the program.
Hi, Marissa. Thank you. Good to be here.
Lovely to have you. Now, Lydia, I'm wondering if you could just introduce yourself first and let us know what land you're from and talk a little bit about the work that you've been doing in regards to this topic.
Mm-hmm. So my name's Lydia Thorpe. I'm a Gunai Gunditjmara woman, and basically I've been working with the Victorian Traditional Owner Land Justice Group, who originally were on the interim treaty working group with the state government. We went to about a dozen meetings in the early days, and come to a point where we felt that we were being compromised. Our integrity was being compromised. It was a Labor government's agenda that was the priority rather than the priority of the grassroots people that had been calling for a treaty, for over 40 years, particularly coming from Victoria and people like my Uncle Robbie Thorpe. So basically the whole treaty discussion was, I believe, railroaded by this government agenda and has been ever since by, employing consultants such as Ernst Young and, giving them $500,000 or so to go around and talk to our people in a way that I believe was not a proper consultation process in the way that our people can relate to and understand and want to be a part of. So it was a waste of money, and it certainly was a waste of our people's time, because they haven't been able to, get much out of that. And they certainly have, they're not listening to the people, because they're just about to announce a community assembly, which no one has agreed to, but they seem to be just pressing on and doing what they see to be the priority in the lead up to the next election.
So, Lydia, can you describe to us the nature of this assembly and talk about who is they and what sort of assembly is it?
Well, good question. So they are the interim treaty working group who sits in Aboriginal Victoria and
Yes.
advise Aboriginal Victoria on the treaty talks thus far. That group is made up of Aboriginal organisation representatives and Aboriginal corporation representatives who say that they're there as individuals, but I question that.
Yes.
And they're certainly, individuals that already advise the Minister for Aboriginal Affairs on a number of other issues or areas that relate to our people. So, at the end of the day, I believe them to be government picks.
Okay.
It hasn't gone out to the people the way it should have been. And in terms of the Assembly, I believe that they are looking to advertise out to community, and it will be a application process, and the interim treaty working group members will decide on who gets a seat in the Assembly. And I understand the number to be approximately 30 people. The Victorian Traditional Owner Land Justice Group have been advocating for a clan-based treaty discussion. But also, people like my grandmother, Elma Thorpe, who's a very respected elder, who set up the Victorian Aboriginal Health Service with Uncle Bruce McGuinness back in 1973 and, fought for our people's rights and still does today. It's elders that are also saying, where are our clans' voices and where are our elders' voices? And both of those, most crucial, fundamental parts of our communities and culture are being totally disregarded as part of this process. And I think that's where it lacks the credibility and accountability to the people.
Sadly lacking in mainstream media, and I've done a fair bit of listening and research, and nowhere in my research have there been any interviews in regards to discussing the unfinished business that has happened with First Nations people over hundreds of years. And basically what has been focused on, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Lydia, is that it's all like they're saying that it's important to recognise Aboriginal people in the Constitution. Not much has been talked about as far as treaties concerned, and they want to actually do that first, don't they? The government wants to put in the Aboriginal people into the Constitution,
yes.
And they'll no longer be considered flora and fauna. Excuse me, but sorry, Lydia, but it's I know I sound really harsh, don't I? But
well,
yeah,
look, it's in the best interest for
yes, it is. I'm not saying it isn't,
government
yeah.
to put us into the Constitution, because that will negate a treaty.
Yes.
So in all the work that needs to happen for this country to finally come to some agreement with its First People, it's going to take some work.
Correct.
And I don't think that the Liberal government or even, if Labor got in, they're not going to put time and resources into treaty discussions with the hundreds of clans around this country.
Precisely.
To be able to have real dialogue, real discussion with every clan that has been affected from, in the last 230 years. So, of course, it's in their best interest to put us in their Constitution, sure. But it's not in our best interest, because it will take away so many of our rights, or what rights that we have, left, which aren't many anyway. But it certainly puts our sovereignty, in question.
Let's talk about that, Lydia. So when you say rights, so you've said that it's within the government's best interests to have Aboriginal people in there. And what about... Okay, let's say tomorrow it was decided that First Nations people will be placed into the Constitution. Tell us how those rights would then be violated.
Well, it would be... to me, it would be done and dusted. We'd come under the supremacy of Parliament. which is a powerful government ownership, I suppose, within their constitution. I believe that things like Crown land would be at risk with what little Crown land there is, of course, but also our connection, our sovereignty to this place would be taken away. And I think through a treaty that we can work towards an agreement that doesn't do that. Going into the Constitution, we'll just become like everybody else in the country. We will just slowly die off, slowly assimilate, and we'll just become like everybody else. We won't have any further rights to our own country than anybody else. And it will save a lot of money for, taxpayers, I suppose, to just put us into the Constitution and get on with it. But it'll create a lot of heartache and a lot of unrest that we don't need in this country right now. And I think for Aboriginal people to come together with non-Aboriginal people in this country, we need to have meaningful, respectful dialogue around treaty and what that means for Aboriginal people and what that means for non-Aboriginal people. And part of the negotiation could be that we eventually go into the Constitution, but there's unfinished business, as you say, that needs to be addressed before we agree to going into the Constitution. The only ones agreeing to go into the Constitution right now, in terms of these Aboriginal leaders that they keep referring to, are ones that are either working with mining companies or the politicians right now in the Labor government and the Liberal government. They're not the everyday grassroots people that you talk to. They're not the majority of the traditional owners in this country.
I thank you for explaining that, and I really also want to set the record straight about the Uluru Statement. And I know you and I discussed this off air this morning. Can you talk about that? Because, it seems to me that Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal people are speaking in the mainstream media about the fact that the Uluru Statement needs to be recognised. And yet a lot of people didn't agree with that, and the consultation process apparently wasn't all that great. Is that right?
That's true. And it's unfortunate because it's got such a beautiful name and it's got some really lovely words contained in the statement. However, the background to the statement is quite horrific, and I use that harsh word because there's people that are still reeling in the trauma that was associated to that statement being made. And it's things like exclusive processes that locked out grassroots people all around this country to have a say at those referendum meetings. You can ask anybody around the country, did you get an invite to the Referendum Council's regional dialogue? Majority of people will say no. The people who were invited or the people who were and attended were corporations and organisations. They had a sprinkle of community, not many, but where they did, those voices were overtaken by the corporations. And then once we got to Yulara, the people that questioned constitutional reform or recognition were ostracised and made out to be troublemakers or negative people, which is what Marcia Langton spoke of yesterday.
Marcia Langton said that?
Yeah, she referred to the walkout group as negative people that no one should take notice of, which, obviously it's impacted if Marcia Langton's talking about it, and she knows good well that, that walkout group, of 25 people were representative of many, many, many thousands of Aboriginal people across this country. And there were senior elders part of that walkout group, staunch senior elders that have been fighting our fight, for 50 years, over 50 years, and their old people fought for our rights. So, we had threats put upon us, which I believe the Referendum Council was responsible for as part of, their intimidation tactics. So when I see the Uluru Statement from the heart, it does, it brings up some pretty bad memories and pretty bad processes that everybody who attended that forum is aware of. And the walkout group and others are still reeling from that and want justice in terms of it wasn't from the heart in terms of its validity or its, it didn't have the heart and the passion that they say that it did, because it actually hurt a lot of people, and tribal law was pulled out to intimidate people, which I think negates any heart statement from the heart.
What do you mean by that? What tribal law?
Well, there were a few members of the walkout group that were threatened with physical violence while they were in Uluru, while they were in Yulara. So they weren't able to go back to their rooms that night, and they had to go and sleep out in the bush and be protected.
What?
So there's some serious offences that occurred because people spoke out. And the things that people spoke out about were things like free, informed, prior consent. Where is it? Why are we talking about treaty when we all come here to talk about constitutional recognition? If we're going to talk about treaty, then people need to understand what that means. And if people fully understood what treaty meant, then they wouldn't be backing a constitutional reform. So there was no free, informed, prior consent. There was no information given out to anybody who attended the convention. There were many, many people whose English was their third language, and when we spoke to them in outside and at dinners and in the breaks, they had no idea what constitutional recognition was going to do for us or what it meant. Oh. And so, that was quite disheartening, and I know for a fact, because I spoke to elders, that they felt quite ill, that our people were being railroaded and used for an agenda which wasn't ours.
Nothing's really changed in some ways, Lydia, has it? I mean, it's look at what happened.
We went there with hope.
Yes.
We thought that, okay, deadly, biggest mob, a lot of states are for treaty. The majority of this country are against constitutional recognition. So we had hope that we'd come away with a really good commitment, or at least a way forward that would allow our people to have a conversation about treaty. But that wasn't the case, and we had Noel Pearson there who wrote a book prior to the Uluru Convention on constitutional reform and the roadmap to constitutional reform, and that's all that was pushed at the convention, was his agenda. And it's really disappointing, and I think it's quite criminal what occurred on all fronts to our people. People walked away just feeling disenfranchised, and it was just a waste of people's time.
And creating major divisions as well.
Absolutely.
Creating
Major divisions.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, my hair just stands up on end hearing all this. It's standing up on end. It's words can't even describe it. I mean, it's even, that's why I made that comment, Lydia, before about how, you know, sometimes I do refer back to Aboriginal people that in some ways they were treated like flora and fauna. You know what I'm saying? That you understand, don't you, what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
You know,
look, honestly, I think we would have been better under that act than we are now. You know, we may have had more rights.
I'm hoping
than what we do now.
I'm really hoping that, you know, that there can be a way to have that treaty in place and to try to discuss and address that finished business, and then afterwards, you know, there's a time and a place, isn't it, to have the Constitution, and it's not too late. It's never too late, is it?
Well, we're patient people. You know, 230 years. What's going to change if we go into the Constitution? Nothing's going to change. There's no healing from going into a Constitution. Nothing will change. Is it going to change, you know, Elijah Doherty's family's lives? I don't think so. Is it going to change Miss Doo's family's lives? I don't think so. So our people need healing, and I believe a treaty can bring that, because you have to have healing to have a conversation about treaty. If non-Aboriginal people understood what they can get out of a treaty and how it's not something to be afraid of, you know, they can be part of the healing. They can feel good about being in this country.
Considering the fact that it is their country.
Exactly.
And, you know, what about all the nuclear, the nuclear waste dumps? You know, they want to ruin country. And look, recently, wasn't it Lester that died as a result of becoming blind from the nuclear testing in the 1960s?
Yeah.
Has that been acknowledged?
Nothing. I mean, the frontier wars haven't been acknowledged.
No.
You know, and I was part of that march on Anzac Day with the frontier mob, and it's the furthest we got ever, apparently, in this last 7 years of marching at the back of the march, to have our frontier wars at least acknowledged. But still, you know, we had to wait till the procession was finished and all the formalities were finished, and then we were able to lay flowers in recognition of our frontier wars. So there's so much healing that has to occur. Going into the Constitution right now will only cause us more damage.
So, Lydia, what can we do to help each other? What can happen to try to move forward here?
Well, it's the Labor. I believe if the Labor government get in next year, we're doomed. So we need to put pressure on the voters and on these MPs not to, you know, to say no to constitutional recognition, or stop Labor from getting in. I mean, we don't have much of a choice. So, you know, the two major parties are worse than one another.
Stopping Labor from getting in, though, is not going to help, I don't think, because... Well, as soon as they get in, they'll have us in the Constitution. They believe that their Aboriginal leadership... Yep, absolutely. And you don't think there can be any hope for consultation?
Oh, well, according to the Referendum Council, they've done the consultation.
Already?
Through the dialogues.
Oh, my goodness. Well, I hope that changes, and I hope that we can, you know, I hope that changes. But I invited you on the show, Lydia, to talk about all this, you know, to discuss this unfinished business. And, yeah, go on.
We need a treaty. We need a treaty, and we need to put pressure where we can on calling for a sovereign treaty in this country.
People need to write to the senators, I think, don't they?
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yep.
Including Bill Shorten.
We need a sovereign treaty, not a corporate treaty, not what this Victorian state government are doing. which is a corporate treaty. We need a real sovereign treaty that starts with healing.
Correct.
Yep.
Correct. Lydia, thank you so much for coming onto the program. This is 3CR Community Radio Doing Time Show, and we are very honoured to have Lydia Thorpe on this show speaking about what's really happening, not just what the main media perspective is. Thanks so much, Lydia.
Thank you.
Hopefully we can have you back on very soon.
No worries.
Take care.
Thank you soon.
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
And that was Lydia Thorpe speaking about a lot of unfinished business and looking at a lot of disturbing elements in regards to the consultation process and some misrepresentation of Aboriginal elders in regards to looking at a treaty before one actually includes Aboriginal people into the Constitution. And she speaks a lot about the terrible, terrible division amongst Aboriginal peoples, and I'm hoping that there can be some type of bridge organised here to address some of these things.
Keep Radical Radio on the air. Pledge your support for a 3CR program during Radiothon. To make your pledge, call us on 9419 8377 or visit us at the station, 21 Smith Street in Collingwood, and pay by cash, cheque or FPOS. You can also visit the website 3cr.org.au, or if you prefer post, send your cheque or money order to PO Box 1277, Collingwood 3066. And be sure to tell us which program you would like your donation to go to. Support radical programs with passion. Melbourne's 3CR.
Words are cheap, cheaper than this priceless land. Promises, they disappear just like writing in the sand. Dream now, dream now.
This land was never given up. This land was never bought or sold. That planning of that Union Jack never changed down or at all. And now two rivers run that course, separated for so long. 'Cause we're not big enough a brighter day when those rivers will run as one. Dream now,
And now, let's introduce the band. Starting from over here on the piano, Sam Keevers. On bass, Michael Marr.
and you're back with the Doing Time show, and you just heard a song, Treaty, that was actually performed live by a bunch of quite amazing and strong Aboriginal artists, and quite acceptable and quite appropriate given the material that we were discussing before about unfinished business. It's approximately 4:35, and we're speaking now with Ian from Sydney, who's done a lot of work on refugee and asylum seeker rights. Hello, Ian.
Yeah, hi.
Welcome.
Yeah,
Ian,
thank
could
you.
you just give a quick introduction and say where you're from?
Yeah, I'm from the Refugee Action Coalition in Sydney. We've been doing a lot of stuff for a lot of years. We were set up originally to fight the policies that the Howard government was putting in place, and One Nation at the time when they started to increase the issues, both in extending the detention regime in Australia, and of course raising all the the racism and Islamophobia that was associated with the Howard government's policies, which have been continued by the Labor Party, and again continued in even worse form by the Abbott government, now the Turnbull government.
Indeed. And in fact, you may have heard that there was a Melbourne event recently at Trades Hall, hosted by the Refugee Action Collective, who was talking about how to break partisan support and work out how to provide the Labor Party, how they can provide support to help with these policies.
Yes. Yeah, look, it's been a strategic issue really since the beginning of the campaign, because one of the things which I think politically which holds the campaign back is the fact that there is bipartisan support for all the refugee policies essentially, including not including, but in particular with offshore detention, which was put in place by initially by Howard, of course, under the Pacific Solution the first time around, but most recently it was by Rudd. In 2007, just prior to the election that he lost to the Abbott government. The Abbott government has extended some of the things that Rudd put in place, but there's no doubt that the opening Nauru, opening Manus Island, the declaration that people wouldn't be able to be resettled in Australia, all came from Rudd and Richard Marles, who negotiated the deal with Papua New Guinea after Rudd's announcement. So it's been a strategic task for how to break that bipartisan support. I mean, the fact that it doesn't matter what happens. We've seen another sort of death, perhaps yesterday overnight on Manus Island. We're yet to hear some comments from the Labor Party, but the fact that politically the people that's meant to be some kind of opposition is not any kind of opposition to Turnbull over the question of refugees, and that does mean that there's a very huge task on the shoulders of the movement to be that political opposition that we haven't had for the last 17, 18 years on that issue.
Absolutely, in general, that's true. And although happily, Labor didn't support the lifetime ban, which was a good thing, and the boats.
No, that's right. I think we need to look at those kinds of things.
Yeah.
They're small chinks. The fact that the Labor Party, will get rid of temporary protection visas. I mean, there is a reason to vote Labor against the Liberals, even at that level. And there have been some other Labor people who have been prepared to speak out. It's why the campaign has taken the issue of the unions, so importantly, so significantly. They're both, the organised elements of the working class. It's where the Liberals want to sink the racism, into the community, but they also have a connection with, the Labor Party, and shifting the unions, shifting their policy is also part of, attempting that shift in the Labor Party as well.
Ian, thanks for doing that, because that's actually a really good follow-up and explanation in regards to the recording that the Doing Time show did at that event, and that actually aired last Monday. And in fact, you can actually download that as a podcast if listeners are interested. So following on from that, on Friday, the Refugee Action Collective hosted a snap action. And in fact, in regards to the fact that protests are growing on Manus, and there's footage, isn't there, over the cutting of water power and sanitation to Foxtrot compound. This is an attempt to force the refugees to leave the centre. And in fact, the US deal is a big mess, isn't it? Can you talk about that?
It's a big mess. The Turnbull government has placed a lot on the US deal. The fact is that except for the US deal, there is no resettlement program anywhere. It's not Nauru, it's not PNG, there's no other country. So they've got a lot of eggs in the US deal basket. But of course, it's been fraught from the beginning. Like, it's 8 months now since it was first announced, and not one individual has been told whether they've been accepted and are eligible to go to the US. The scheme itself has been suspended because the refugee quota for the US has been filled until October. So there's no prospect of anyone from Nauru or Manus, actually going to the US before the beginning of October. It looks very likely that people will be. It'll be a year, and certainly more for most people before there is any prospect of going to the US. But on top of that, the recent revelations that have emerged over the transcript of the conversation between Turnbull and Trump, has exposed, certainly it's exposed, Turnbull in a particular light as being, the person that's saying to Trump, actually, you don't need to take anyone. All you need to do is be seen to be doing something, and that's all that the Australian government wants to do. So as long as we can say, there is a US deal and we are referring them to you, and we can be seen to be doing something. And he actually at one point says to Trump effectively that you don't have to take anyone, and you would still be fulfilling the deal. So it's very clear that the deal has no substance. The fact that it's pretty much verified out of that transcript that they're only talking about, at most, 1,250 people, and that 1,250 people is not enough to take all the refugees from Nauru and Manus. So there are serious problems, about anyone ever getting to the United States. The revelations that come out with that have re-sparked demonstrations on Nauru, who now believe that there isn't anything really to substance to the US deal. On Manus Island, we've seen a very very serious attempt to actually force people out of the detention centre to East Lorengau to try and force people back home. And even though people are still in the detention centre, they've been depriving people of services, depriving them of activities, reducing the amount of points that they can spend inside the detention centre itself. They've limited now, you can't buy anything at the canteen inside the detention centre except cigarettes, phone cards, and pens. Everything else has gone. And then they've used things like cutting off water, cutting off power. They've actually demolished some peripheral buildings that actually were being used to house people. So there is quite a conscious effort to place now a Foxtrot compound under siege. It's been blockaded. Water and power was cut off.
The garbage is piling up.
Cut off. Pardon?
The garbage is definitely piling up there.
The garbage is piling up, although I know this is something which is important, the resistance inside. There have been daily demonstrations at Foxtrot compound since last Monday, a week now, and yesterday cleaners actually went in to the Foxtrot compound the first time in a week. Yep. And that's come about because of the demonstrations and the resistance inside the centre.
Ian, I wanted to actually develop a point with what the mainstream media is doing in regards, or saying, because I really don't understand it, and perhaps you can shed light on this particular topic that I'm about to raise. There seems to be some type of dialogue about a phone call that apparently had leaked out between Malcolm Turnbull and Donald Trump about the deal.
Yep.
And it seems to me that there's quite a lot of unhealthy emphasis being placed on that phone call rather than what's really happening.
Yes, the media are certainly very excited by the transcript, and yes, I mean I share some of your frustrations. I mean, we've been attempting to expose all the things that we didn't have the transcript, but it was very obvious from the beginning that there were the problems that are outlined by the transcript, that there wasn't enough positions in the place, that Trump and Turnbull were paying lip service to the prospects of resettlement. The silver lining, though, to the leaking of the transcript is, I think, it's now in black and white, for people to see. It's not just, 3CR Refugee Action Coalition that's actually saying, there is the US deal has no substance. People can actually see the transcript. I think the other thing which has, excited some of the media is that it is clear that Turnbull said one thing to Trump and quite another, to the media and to the Australian public. Like he is exposed, like his immigration minister as being very loose with the truth.
What did he say to Trump?
Well, he said to Trump, effectively, as I said, you actually don't need to take anybody. And he's at pains to say, look, I've been trying to explain to you that all you need to do is look like you're processing them, but you can extreme vet them. You can take 1,000, you can take 100, and at one point Trump says, what if I take nobody? And Turnbull says, well, that's what I'm trying to explain to you, that you don't have to take anybody. Whereas, and what he said to the Australian public, was very different. Oh no, we had this, a cordial conversation, and that Trump's agreed to the deal, and put a very different interpretation, in terms of what he said publicly after that phone call. So it's, I think people have been shocked to see, the contrast between what Turnbull actually said, to the media after that conversation and what's emerged in the transcript itself.
So basically we can conclude then that the US deal isn't happening?
I don't think we can conclude that. I mean, I think in spite of everything, we are likely to see some people go from Nauru to the US. I mean, there have been, 650 perhaps interviews on Nauru, perhaps 200 people have had medicals. I don't think they've gone through all that to take nobody. But the fact is that as we're sitting here at the moment having this conversation, we could not be at all confident that it is going to happen. It's still sheer speculation. As I said, no one's been told they are going, in spite of all the presence of US officials and the interviews that have taken place. No one knows that. So I think what we can say, though, is given the transcript, given everything we know, there will be hundreds of people, and perhaps over 1,000 people who are going to be left behind, even if the US deal is fulfilled. So all the reasons that we had for bringing people to Australia back in 2007, let alone at 2017, there is all those things are still in place. We should be 2007 when the US deal was done, to 2013 when this particular version was put in place. So they've been on there 4 years. They should never have been sent, and they should be brought back to Australia, because there are no guarantees. So why are we going to keep people on Manus and Nauru for another 3 months, let alone another year or another 15 months before anyone who might go to the US?
So where are they going to go, Ian? What's going to happen with all these people?
Well, I think ultimately, as long as the campaign remains determined, that the contradictions in the government's scheme and that will mean that people will ultimately have to be brought here. I mean, they're already perhaps close to 400 now. Certainly, 370, 380 people who from Manus and Nauru have been brought here for medical reasons, and I think the campaign remains strong to actually keep them here. There's legal action in place which keeps them here, which the government hasn't tried to contest. But the contradictions in the thing, the fact that they can't send anybody anywhere, that's why you end up with the brutality of Manus Island. They're just trying to force people and put them between a rock and a hard place. We'll take away the water, we'll take away the power, we're going to make even worse the conditions of overcrowding and the lack of sanitation that already exists inside Manus Island. We'll make that even worse for you unless you go to East Lorengau, or unless you agree to return home. So we can see it's the kind of mentality, I think, that lies behind so much of what the Turnbull government does. There's no carrot. It's all stick. And then for the people on Nauru, as I said, it's very clear that the money they've been handing to the Nauru government, they will maintain Nauru as a prison colony for a considerable time to come, for many years to come.
What's East Lorendon? What's that?
East Lorengau. Lorengau is actually the settlement on Manus Island. So the detention centre is actually on the what's called the Lobram Naval Base on Manus Island. So it's actually on the naval base. And Lorengau is the Manus settlement, which is closest, the civilian settlement, if you like, which is closest to the detention centre. And there is an area at East Lorengau where the government has built, they call it transit accommodation. It's got accommodation for up to 290-odd people, and it was put there for refugees to be shifted from the detention centre to this area close to the Lorengau settlement. But the problem is that the activities and the services and the food and everything that's associated with East Lorengau is actually worse than it is in the detention centre. And on top of that, people are very vulnerable to the kinds of savage attacks that we've seen, of people being macheted with bush knives, by a proportion of the small sections, perhaps, of the local population. But they are prepared to mug, to bash, to maim, with bush knives, as they rob people of money and, mobile phones.
Absolutely. Well, I'm hoping that, I don't know, there's hope. Hopefully there's still hope, and we need to bring them here, or we need to somehow, improve things here.
Yeah, no, there's hope in the campaign. Well, the campaign still, fights the government. The people on Manus Island and Nauru, they're continuing to fight for their rights, and, we can continue to, push the Turnbull government as hard as we can.
Absolutely. Look, Ian, thank you so much for coming onto the program. And we'll
That's
just
thank you.
have to watch this space and work out whether, in fact, they do end up going to the US. It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
Thanks so much. Take care.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
And that was Ian from Sydney, who's involved in a refugee action group that is looking at helping asylum seekers, and they've done a lot of extensive work on that. And just to talk a little bit about the snap action that happened, it was at the State Library, and the speakers included Janet Rice, Green Senator, voice recordings from Abdul Aziz and Amir Tawina, refugees imprisoned on Manus Island, and Aaron was also a speaker, the Tamil refugee from the Tamil Refugee Council, and I believe he's got a radio show here, and do tune into that and listen to some of the commentary in regards to refugees and asylum seekers. So yeah, it's approximately 4:51. And we're actually nearing the end of our show, and I'm just going to go into a cart.
6. معلومات العنف الأسري. يستضيف مجلس يارا وخدمة فيتزوري القانونية فيتزوري ليجل سيرفيس جلسة معلومات عن العنف الأسري يوم الأربعاء 12 من تموز يوليو من الساعة 2 مساء إلى الساعة 3 مساء في مكتبة فيتزوري، وستغطي الجلسة السبل القانونية لوقف العنف الأسري. يمكنك حجز مكانك على الموقع.
We jail black males in Australia nationally at a rate 5 times greater than apartheid South Africa jailed black males in 1993. The suicide and self-harm rates are the highest in the world, and the life expectancy gap is the biggest in the first world. Australians don't like hearing the truth about how bad things are, but the more we resolve from it, the longer this is going to continue.
Black fella, white fella, it doesn't matter what you color.
Mainstream media is not interested in this stuff. It doesn't find space to talk truthfully and deeply about issues that affect all Australians. The only place predominantly you will find that with any real depth is on community radio, and 3CR has been one of the great leaders in that. So if people are wondering where they should spend their hard-earned cash, I would suggest 3CR is a bloody good place to start.
What your name is, we got the hair, lots of changes, we need more brothers.
And you're back with the Doing Time show. It's approximately 4:53, and just wanted to quickly speak about Jan Lehman, who has been in segregation in America, and he's a political prisoner. He's been in segregation since his birthday on March 21st, 2017, and it's important that people can do a few things to help alleviate the situation. Jan's been in segregation for 3 months, simply for issuing 2 statements, a clear violation of free speech and and Human Rights. He is being threatened with transfer to a Communication Management Unit, CMU, or Special Management Unit, punishments that are not appropriate for a prisoner of Yarn's age and would be a violation of practising free speech. So write, call, email the Bureau of Prisons Regional Director and ask her not to transfer Yarn to a Communication Management Unit. Please remind her that Yarn is an elder prisoner and you are concerned about his health in segregation, and you would be concerned about his safety if he is moved to a Communication Management Unit. Mary M. Mitchell is the name of the warden, Regional Director, BOP Regional Office, 7338 Shoreline Drive, Stockton, CA 95219, and the regional email is wxrostistant@bop.gov.gov. So it is important. I actually had the pleasure of visiting Yarn in prison when I was over in the United States many years ago now, and although there was a box visit, I never forgot him, and he's actually a very, very amazing voice on For Struggle magazine, if you wanted to Google that. He helps to edit that, and he's done some amazing radio commentaries of his own, and he's also contributed quite highly and valuably to prisonradio.org along with Mamir Abul-Jamal. And if people are interested in writing to him, Google Yarn Layman, Jan, second name Laaman, and the prison is actually situated in Arizona. And that'll be important. We're nearing the end of our show. It's approximately 4:56. We've only got a couple of minutes left, so but I'll certainly bring you his address next Monday as well for convenience, so that people can write to him. Yeah, so that's quite a sad thing, being censored for expressing opinions, and for expressing opinions for Lynn Stewart, who the Do and Time Show has done extensive coverage on Lynn Stewart, People's Lawyer, who was also a political prisoner. And it is important to look at international news as well. I know we've got to look at our own backyard as well, but it is important to remember that, we have political prisoners all over the world, and that dissent is already being criminalised everywhere. So it's approximately 4:57, and it's goodbye from Marissa. Tune into the Do and Time Show every Monday from 4 till 5, and tune in next Monday coming up, the 14th of August, where we're going to be joined by Claire Seppings and others to speak about the lived experience of prisons. Coming up is Beyond Zero, and we're going to be going out with our theme song Black Fella White Fella from the Rumpy Band. And thanks for Rob who produced, and to Peter as well.
As long as you are true